What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a video discussing what Owlcat Games is likely up to next in terms of DLC and perhaps their next project, as they have now released their current title, Rogue Trader, the first Warhammer 40k CRPG, but as we'll get into in this video, they have a few different things going on. And since they are responsible for one of my favorite games, Wrath of the Righteous, I tend to keep up with what they are doing in general. Now, much of what we're going to discuss here is really what they're going to be up to likely over the course of 2024, with any newer game likely taking at least 2 years. If not, of course, longer. Now, in the immediate future, it's pretty obvious what they will be up to, as they are going to be working on bug fixes for Rogue Trader, of course, some of which are sorely needed, and a few DLCs for both Wrath of the Righteous and Rogue Trader as well. Now, on the Wrath of the Righteous side of things, we have one more DLC to go for that game, the last DLC for Season 2 of their DLC passes, with this final one being directly inspired by Mass Effect Citadel DLC that will take all of your companions and things over the course of the game and give you a unique final hurrah, so to speak, in the last act of the game, or the one right before it really, that is to say Act 5. And while there will, of course, be a small side story that goes along with this, for the most part it's just meant to be a send-off to all the companions, and is the last slated DLC for that game. Theoretically, they've left the door open for potentially more, but I sincerely doubt we'll get any more, as I cannot imagine the attachment rate, that is to say the people buying the DLCs, is particularly high, given that that game is years old now. But either way, it'll be a nice way to finally wrap up that game. Now, in terms of Rogue Trader, outside of, like I mentioned, bug fixes and the like, they've already posted 2 DLC plans over the course of 2024 via a Season Pass DLC page over on Steam. So let's talk about that a little bit. The first of these DLCs is slated for summer of 2024, and it is called Void Shadows. And it looks like it'll be focusing on expanding basically everything to do with your Void ship, including, of course, Void combat, but also things like your crew, exploring different parts of your ship, etc. There's even going to be a new companion who is part of a death cult, on top of it giving you even more opportunities to meet with important people who play a role in operating your ship. They also say a little bit here about unlocking new upgrades and things like that for your Void ship, so I imagine this will just be expansions to things like equipment and combat abilities probably, but overall we shall see. Now, the second DLC for Rogue Trader is planned for the holiday season of 2024, and it is called Lex Imperialis. This one seems to be much, I would say, more ambitious, as it's going to involve the history of House von Valancius, that is to say the previous rogue traders of our dynasty that came before us and what they got up to, but also we're going to be doing so alongside a new companion who is a member of the Adeptus Arbites, while you learn more about the Imperial Tithe, that is to say, as a rogue trader, all of your worlds owe a tithe to the Imperium of Man, which has to be paid. So I imagine the story is going to revolve around that a little bit, but this particular DLC also promises new game mechanics alongside new archetypes, that is to say classes, and new enemies to face. So that one definitely seems to be the bigger of the two, though both of them are apparently going to be around 15 hours of gameplay time, so they clearly have some plans in place for where they want to take that title. But that leaves us with what other games or future releases might we expect from Owlcat? Well, believe it or not, we do have a little bit of information on this, but it is very minuscule. And that information simply is that they have an unannounced project they are currently working on, which means whatever game release they have slated for next is definitely in the works. This is something I actually noticed while browsing their website. If you go there and check out their portfolio or their games that they've made, there is an unannounced project listed there. Now, as to what this project actually is, it of course could be a few different things, but I do think it's safe to say it'll probably be another CRPG, but that of course is where good old-fashioned speculation comes in. And in addition to this, they also have a bunch of openings for their studio on their website as well, and while none of these I would say really give you any hint as to what they might be working on, one of them is pretty noteworthy because they are hiring for an Unreal Engine developer, which is relevant because all their games up to this point have been in Unity. So they might have some significant changes to their systems, etc., coming in whatever their next project is. Now, in terms of IP, etc., I still would love to see them work on a Starfinder title, which is the sister game to Pathfinder, though I think making a game in that setting does have quite a few hurdles to bypass, namely that Starfinder is not exceedingly popular, and while I think it's a pretty cool setting, I think marketing something like that might be a bit of a struggle. But both Paizo, the owner of that IP, and Owlcat themselves have expressed, I would say, a willingness to work with each other again in the future, so I wouldn't discount it entirely, or of course something else with Pathfinder, as those are pretty successful, though I do think Wrath of the Righteous would be incredibly difficult to top, but obviously not impossible. Then of course there's simply the option that it might be another IP altogether. They might be choosing to work with someone else even, or they might take the particularly bold step of creating their own IP, which I certainly think they're capable of, but in a slightly more reserved landscape of gaming coming in the next few years, that could also be a potentially risky venture. Which is basically a lot of different words to say that while I have no idea what they might actually be working on in terms of their next project, I do think there is a significant possibility that it is something substantially different, at least in terms of approach, than their previous 3 titles. Whereas for the immediate future, in terms of DLCs, etc., we have a pretty good idea of exactly what they'll be up to. But in any event, it's certainly something I'll be keeping an eye on and keeping you informed about. So do let me know what you think about all this down in the comment section below. Are you excited for the DLCs, curious about their next project perhaps, etc., etc. But regardless of any of that, I certainly hope you enjoyed this video, hope you found it informative. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.